Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us today for our Teaching and Learning webinar. We have put this webinar on as I'm sure you're all aware that shortly all forms of education are hoping to return in a slightly different way than usual. Here at Ayoa, we have always had close ties to education thanks to the fundamentals of our software, which we acknowledge through rewarding all those involved with education 35% off our plans. However, more now than ever, we believe that due to Ayoa's collaborative and digital nature, it can be put to good use to help with education. Today then, we will be looking at both the traditional ways which mind mapping and task management can be applied within Ayoa to aid education, and also new instances which will see Ayoa step up to the mark and help out during these unfamiliar times. As today's title suggests, we will also be looking at how Ayoa can be utilised by both teachers and students to discover how it can aid all elements of education. Also, as a side note, whilst the webinar is going on, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to place them in the Q&A section of Zoom, and I shall try to answer them as best as I can at the end. To properly commence then, we shall focus upon the application of Ayoa for educators, because they do, after all, more often than not, lay the foundation for the learning and success of their students. With the resumption of terms fast approaching, one thing won't have changed: the requirement to be well organised with lesson plans in place. Producing content which is engaging, relevant and educational is a big ask. To make it more manageable and achievable, Ayoa mind maps are a brilliant resource to turn to. Mind maps are synonymous with visual learning for revision purposes, but their format and natural affiliation with the creative side of our brains make them excellent for producing content too. Plus content which you know will enable learners to form connections, which are crucial to reinforce for their development. When creating lesson plans, a mind map in Ayoa is therefore always a great place to start. To show you why, I'm going to create a new mind map in the speed map style, so we'll just click on the button here. Next off, I'm going to choose a template and scroll through the ones which we have pre-made for our users, all the way to the one called Lesson Planner. We have this available to all users because we know how great our users find Ayoa for this kind of thing. And when it's loaded after a moment, you'll be able to see why that is the case. So having employed the Lesson Planner template, we have a mind map structure already built for us, giving prompts as to what we should think about to create an awesome lesson. Often, when faced with a blank screen, it can be intimidating as you don't know where to start. But with a template like this on hand, we are already 5, 6, 7, loads of steps ahead. As you can see then, our lesson planner template is encouraging us to focus on the vital aspects of every lesson, such as objectives, resources, activities, and lots more. With these basic yet fundamental prompts in place, we can set off on the right track to begin planning our lesson. For instance, I might start off by thinking what the objectives are for my lesson. And for the first one, I might think that I would like to double click where it currently says add objective, and we'll fill it in with the title of Define the Anthropocene, if this was to be a geography lesson. And then having done that, that could lead me to think about how I can ensure that my students will achieve that objective. So I'll probably end up looking at the activities area of my mind map over here in the bottom left. In this instance, to achieve that objective, it might be beneficial to pose to my students what is the Anthropocene and why is it in existence currently. I'll therefore go to the discussion branch, hover over it, wait for the green plus to arise, and click on it to create an extra branch after it, and call it What is the Anthropocene? As that will be the discussion which I'd like my students to engage with. Having added that branch, if I click onto it, you'll see that we get a series of options appear just above, including what is known as the notes section, which is located to the right of the paintbrush. If I click on here, I can add some notes to sit behind this branch to ensure that I can remind myself of how I'd like the discussion to be steered in order for the aforementioned objective to be achieved. I could also think that I'd like to include some worksheets to help ensure the objectives is met. So I might also add a branch after the worksheet here. And I could call it Human Influence upon the Planet, as that will be the name of my worksheet which I'm going to hand out. This time I'm going to click on the branch again to open up its options, but instead click on the attachments icon. And then this box in the top over here, because it allows me to upload any file either from my computer, so my device, my Dropbox account, or even my Google Drive account. This moment, I'm going to select my computer and just upload an example file, which might well be the worksheet that I will use later. And as you can see, it's now saved as an attachment behind my branch in my lesson plan. So having done so and added in those activities to my lesson plan in the hope that it will help my students achieve the first objective, which we created earlier on the far right over here, I could in fact link the branches together by selecting one. So I'm going to select this yellow one on the far right, and then I'm going to hold down Control on my PC because I've got a Windows PC, but if I was using an Apple Mac, I would hold down Command, and then I'm going to select one of my activities over here. Now that I've done so, we get a pop-up in the center of our screen, and I'm going to select this middle icon called Create a Connection Arrow. The result is that my mind map is now stitched together to link those two branches, showing my logic and my reasoning. So as you can see, by using a template such as this, Aor mind maps can give you a head start with your lesson planning. And thanks to their visual nature, support your brain's cognitive functions when summoning up inspiration for content, which will help you guide your students to achieving lesson objectives. Now, I shan't continue to plan out a whole lesson, as hopefully you can envisage how this would develop. But alongside the ideation side of planning lessons, they also need to be scheduled and organized for a term to be successful. Fortunately, within Ayoa, we also have task management functionality available that collaborates with our mind maps. If I return to the home page, you can see this on the right-hand side of the screen. And you'll also notice that there are different styles of task boards available, which is the task and project management side of Ayoa. We have the different styles so that people can work in a way which is best for them. We therefore have the very visual canvas mode on the left here, which is inspired by mind maps. In the center, there is the linear list workflow style, and on the right is the Gantt Timeline, which is very time orientated and a lot like a calendar. If I open up a task board below, which is entitled Spring Term, each of the styles which I described just a moment ago will become a bit clearer, and also how our task boards can be used to schedule lessons. First of all, this is the canvas mode. And if I zoom in on the large outer circles, which are categorizing our tasks, you can see that they are divided by the subject names. So for example, we've got history in blue, we've got IT in red, and we've got English in the dark blue over here. And then if we look within the larger circles, you'll see that we've got tasks with the filled in colored circles. And these are in fact each lesson that we've got going on. But if I go to the top right, where it currently says Canvas, I'm faced with a drop-down menu, which means that I can switch between the styles. So I'm going to go to the workflow now. Here we have exactly the same categories running along the top, the same colors, and the same tasks. The only difference is that they are now formatted in a list. So it would be a different way to view your lessons and how they are scheduled. By returning to the top right again, I'll now show you the Gantt timeline too. Again, all of the same information is reflected, it's just in a different style. This time we have tasks represented as ovals, and they're in the position which collates to their dates, as we have a timeline running along the top. For seeing how things should progress on a day-to-day basis, it might in fact be best to stay in the Gantt timeline, so I will remain in this view for now. Along with showing me when I have my lessons planned for, I can also find out additional details about them if I just click onto their oval. And as a result, you'll see that we get a side panel appear on the far right, which is linked to this unique task. So first of all, I can see when the start date and the due date is in this section here, and I can also amend them if I wish to by clicking on them. I can add further information to it by clicking on the notes section, which is at the top here in this tab. To the right of the notes section, I could even discuss with others about the lesson if they are in this task board alongside me, so maybe other teachers or other lectures, and this is known as the comments tab. And then, like we did in the mind map a bit earlier, you'll see that I can again upload any kind of file which I might need. And then finally, we've also got the option to add a checklist, which in this instance could be resources I need to bring to the lesson. So it could be a textbook, for example, and a handout. So as you can see, in Ayoa, you can schedule your lessons in a view which best suits you, whether it be the visual canvas, the list mode of the workflow, or the Gantt timeline. And it will ensure that you receive proper reminders for them, plus have access to all the info related. However, what if you want to refer back to that amazing lesson plan you mind map, as that would make sense with it forming the bedrock of your lesson? Well, if I return to the mind map, which we made earlier for our geography lesson plan, I can show you how that is possible. By simply clicking on any bubble, and I've selected the central one in this instance, you can then click on the tick icon, which is the final option, as that will denote that you'd like to create a task from here. Having done so, I can then name the task. So I might change it here to Geography Lesson 1. Next up, I click on the 3 vertical dots to the right here. I can assign it to whoever I like, so I'll select myself for now. And then I can place it in the relevant task board. So I'm just going to search for the task board we were in a minute ago called Spring Term, select it, and then I can even pick which category I'd like it to go into. So we don't have one for geography as yet, so I'll just put no category for now. When I click Add Task, that will create the task. And as a result, you can see that when we zoom in to our bubble, at the base of it, there is now a tick icon with the number 1, telling everyone within this mind map that one task is linked to it. If I press onto it, and then the task rectangle which appears on the right here, I'm faced with a side panel which I'd usually see in the task board, as it is showing me all of the task details, such as its start date and its due date, etc. The part I'm currently interested in, though, is the task location, which is near the very bottom. This icon here indicates to me which mind map and branch it is on, and then this one up above tells me which task board and category it is also located in. If I click on the arrow just here pointing to the task board, I shall arrive in the selected task board, which we were in earlier, the one which is called Spring Term. And here is our task which we created within our mind map. By clicking on it, I can add dates to it like we looked at before in this section. I can go to the notes, the comments, the attachments, checklists, etc. But due to it being linked to a bubble in a mind map, if I return to the general info tab at the start and scroll down to the task location, this time when I click onto the arrow, Aor will transport me all the way back to my mind map, which is my lesson plan. So within Ayoa, we are therefore given a space with our mind maps to plan lessons and be assisted by their intuitive design. But we're also given another area to schedule our lessons, which is our task boards. But in addition to all of that, there's also the super useful ability to bring them together so that everything is succinct and easy to find at a click of a button, or should I say an arrow under the task location section. So having covered some of the ways teachers and lecturers can enhance and support their organisation via Ayoa, we'll now bring students directly into the equation by considering how educators can use Ayoa alongside them to find a solution to the likely scenario they will be facing of a hybrid learning environment, a mixture between being on site and at home. There are many ways which this can be done, but we will begin by looking at the simplest. First of all, as mentioned, mind mapping has long been used as an aid for revision, thanks to its colourful disposition and easy ability to group pieces of information with just keywords, making it less difficult to soak up and retain knowledge. As a first use case of Ayoa for teachers interacting with their students, they could create a revision aid upon certain topics, for example, such as this very basic one I made earlier. If they wanted to share it with their class, all they have got to do is go to the top right where it says Add. They'll be faced with this pop-up. Next step is to click onto the bar, and they can just scroll through and click on the relevant students who they would like to add to their revision aid. Before they do so though, they should also make sure to alter the permissions, which everyone will have when they're added to this mind map. So they should click on the permissions button here. The advised one for when sharing a revision aid is read only, as this means that everyone who is added to it won't be able to make any edits which will affect what everyone else sees. Yet, this does not stop students from making their own amendments and additions to the revision aid privately if they so wish. In order to do so, they should click on the settings cog when they're within the mind map in the very top right here. This time, at the base of their pop-up, they will see that they can create a template from their mind map. If they select this, they can name the template. So we might call this revision for tutors. And then they can finalize it by clicking this button here. Ayoa will then save it as a template, registering all that information to be used for another time. And as a result, when they go to the home page to create a new mind map, regardless of which style they choose, whether it be the structured speed map style, the flexible organic style, or the segmented radial map, they can choose to use a template, scroll through the ones which are loaded for every single Ayoa user, and get to the end where they will then see all of the ones which they have saved for themselves. All they've then got to do is click onto it, and they'll have that template as a starting point for their new mind map. Coincidentally, another type of resource which teachers could share for the benefit of their students are templates, maybe for essay planning and writing, such as this one, which I'll show you in a second. To get to the templates which you have saved, from your home page, you should go to the bottom left where it says templates. And as you can see, I've now got a mixture of all the templates which I have saved for both mind maps and task boards, but I can filter them in the top right here. So I might just want to see my mind map templates like I've done now. The example template which I'm going to show you is this one here called Essay Plan. To share it with students, if you are a teacher, all you've got to do is click on the settings cog next to it on the very right of your screen and click Share Template at the top of this pop-up. Again, you just click on this bar and select the relevant students which you would like to add. And once you've added all of them, you just click Share Mind Map Template with these people. This will result in the students receiving a notification of the new template which they've been shared, and the ability to save it to their own account. Once that is the case, they can then, from their home screen, like I'm going to do once more, go to the templates in the very bottom left, and they will see all the templates which they have been shared and saved. If they then want to use a template which their educator has shared with them and they have gone on to saved, all they've got to do is click on it, and Ayoa will employ that template for you when you're creating a new mind map. So I'll just call this one essay plan. Ayoa will then remember all of the structure which you had for that template, and it will go about creating it, so you're not faced with a blank screen. So students could go on to use this template when they're faced with being assigned a new essay to come up with. So it could be for the planning stage or in fact the writing stage. But if it comes to a point or a stage when they would in fact like tutor feedback upon the plan which they have come up with for their essay, they could go to the top right, like we did earlier, and add in their tutor if they so wished. The result would be that once they've done so, the student and tutor could discuss the plan via the comments section per branch. So go to the comments here, and the student could ask for advice on the books they are reading. That would result in a notification being received with the tutor, from the tutor, which they could then respond to. And then if they think that the student has taken on board their advice and made the amendments which they suggested, if the voting is enabled within Ayoa, which it can be if you just go to the top right where the options bar is, and then click Enable Voting. Once the correct amendments have been done to a good standard, the tutor could click onto a branch to show their approval by giving it a thumbs up here, which is now just to the left of the paintbrush. So it's another way, in addition to the comments section, for the tutor and the student to communicate. Now, that is how teachers and students could collaborate remotely via Ayoa on a one-to-one basis, but Ayoa's collaborative potential knows no boundaries. So let's open it up to the scenario of group work, an activity which has become a universal challenge of late. So engaging in group work is a necessity in life and a crucial skill, with doing so virtually inevitably going to be even more important in the future. If educators can therefore find a way for students to practice this, they should. And with Ayoa in fact being a collaborative digital workspace, it bridges the gap between education and professional work superbly. So how can group work be engaged with via Ayoa when people aren't even in the same room together? Well, let's paint a scene. So for example, on day one, a select group of students come in for their lesson or lecture, and they use a mind map template, such as this, to take notes. They choose an Ayoa mind map for note-taking over a traditional notebook, not only because it saves space and means they can access it anywhere on any device, such as a mobile, tablet, or a laptop, but because they think that thanks to mind mapping's visual nature, it means that everything is clearer to review later after they've written up their notes in Ayoa. And also, when in the moment of writing them up, they can do so really quickly due to Aor Speed Keys. I haven't shown you these until now, the Aor Speed Keys, because they are so good for getting notes down at a quick pace. But if you go to the options bar in the top right again, up here, and open it up, you'll see that there's a button called Show Speed Keys. These then appear in the top left-hand corner of your screen, and they act as a handy reminder of all the shortcuts that are always available for you when you're navigating around your mind map, editing it and adding to it. It just means that you can add branches without having to use your mouse. You can just use it with your keyboard and then continue typing your notes. So that might be how students go about taking down their notes if they've had to go into school or university on a day one of our pretend scenario. But if we move on to day two, on this day, the group of students don't come in, and they are in fact working from home. They receive an email letting them know that they have been added to an Ayoa mind map by their educator. They log in and open up to see this. It sets out the details of a group project which they have been assigned, and within there is a comment, as you can see, with the speech bubble at the very bottom. They click on it and they see that it is from their teacher, asking for a group call later that day, for them to be given the brief in full, and also for them to ask any questions if they may have some. They therefore open up a video call from within Ayoa, which is a feature we are releasing very soon, and discuss with their tutor and their fellow students about their group presentation. Moving forward to day 3, the group of students have done their learning on site where they took notes on Ayoa, and they've also learnt what is expected of them from their group task whilst being at home. Now they set about working together, yet remotely, to produce the piece of group work they have been assigned. To do so, one creates a mind map such as this, to enable them to plan their presentation together. They start off with the key parent branches such as themes, suggested arguments, suggested text which they want to analyze for their group presentation. And each of them adds their ideas as branches like we've got here, subsequent to the initial ones. And each student will see them appear on each other's screens in real time. Once they are ready, and at a point such as this, once they've shared all of their ideas, they vote on the ideas which they want to take forward by just giving a thumbs up to those ones which they think they should opt for. So in this instance, the sun also rises is the overwhelming favorite text to take forward. So they might click on the paintbrush to edit the style of it and make sure that it's changed to a green color, so everyone knows that is the text which they're going to take forward. Having planned out their group presentation, they are now into day 4, and they need to make sure that they get the work done to meet the deadline they've been set. From home again, they therefore set up an Ayoa task board, such as this, with all the work that they need to do. If I zoom in, you'll notice the avatars of the imaginary students are on the task which they've been assigned. So everyone knows the responsibility they've been given to ensure that they can work together to get their overall group presentation complete. And you'll notice that they've even added dependency arrows going from task to task, so they're clear upon the order they need to work in. In some instances, they've clicked onto individual tasks to bring up the side panel and added urgency and importance scales to it. So this one's got a red flag indicating that it's really important, allowing them to prioritize their work. Now, from here, as days go by, which might not see them meet up in person, they can upload files to tasks so that each of them can share their work and have them reviewed by everyone else. They can also leave comments in the comments tab like we showed earlier, and from the general info tab at the very start of per task, they can update the progress bar, which is located here, just by sliding it along. And as you can see, if I move it to 95%, we've got a ring now going proportionately round our task to reflect the progress which is made. So that just means that at a glance, everyone else can see how everyone's getting along. And most importantly though, they can all work in a style which best suits them, while still working collectively by being able to switch between the layouts in the top right whenever they like from their own screen. So while some might prefer the visual canvas mode, another might prefer the linear list style, and someone else in the group might prefer the Gantt timeline. So from this imaginary situation, which is in fact probably going to become very real for a lot of people, hopefully you can now see how Ayoa can be used by educators and students together to continue working collaboratively, despite learning via a mixture of from home and being on site. With Ayoa updating all changes in real time, having group chats, enabling files to be uploaded, and soon having video integration in the matter of weeks. Ayoa, with its foundation of colourful mind mapping, has evolved into a collaborative workspace destined to help education through this time. That final example we just went through with the group presentation highlights the true extent of Ayoa's collaborative capabilities. But I hope that today we have also shown you how Ayoa is a platform which can help the education sector in numerous ways, whether it be for educators, students, or both. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll now use this time to see if we have any questions. And if anybody would like to add any additional ones, please drop them into the Q&A section of Zoom. So someone is asking about being able to sell their own templates. We're not really at that capability at the moment. We are building more and more templates, and we might have a community of them soon. But I'm not too sure about selling them. Really, we want to encourage people to be more in a community where they can benefit from seeing other people's templates. It won't be copying their work completely, because it just gives them a starting point and acts as inspiration for them to really launch off and generate their own ideas. Someone else is also asking about extracting task boards from other pieces of software. We do have some integrations, like I showed you with Dropbox and Google Drive, but we're working on a Zapier integration currently, which will open us up to a lot of other pieces of software which you'll be able to integrate with. That's coming very shortly, so hopefully that will be able to help you with that question. So apart from those two, it doesn't look like we have any other questions currently today. I hope that was able to highlight to you how Ayoa is beneficial for the education sector. We do run webinars such as these every week, along with general introduction webinars to Ayoa. It's also a good thing to note that obviously Ayoa is also a piece of assistive software. So when it comes to education, it's very beneficial for students with dyslexia or ADHD, for example. And that's really because of the visual nature of mind mapping, the colorfulness of it, and also the fact that we use a dyslexia-friendly text. So thank you once again for everyone for attending today. I hope you stay safe and to hear from you soon. Thanks. Bye for now.